Hello once again, and welcome to another one of my videos. And this is NewYorkSteelo coming at you with Miracle Mud update number 2. Now, for those of you who have been following my videos, I released a particular video called Miracle Mud, Does It Really Work? And then shortly after that, I released an update of the Miracle Mud already installed in the refugium. Let me just point the light here to give you guys more of a better view, just to show you guys how much the Chaetomorpha has grown. And it's been about 4 months that the Miracle Mud has been installed in the system. And I just recently released a video update number 10 on this 30-gallon nano system, and I stated that I was going to answer many questions about this entire nano setup. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this video in particular to answer everyone's questions about the lighting, questions about the Miracle Mud, questions about whether or not I have done water changes, whether or not I run a protein skimmer, which you see at the end there. So we're gonna take this video and I'm gonna break down the system to you. And one thing to keep in mind is that no one system is the same as another. So what works for me may not work for you. It can be because you have lots of fish and little corals, or it can be that you have both lots of fish and corals. So we're going to break down the system to you, and I'm going to give you guys a quick update on the Miracle Mud as well as answer your questions. So let me just quickly take this lighting system and put it back up here. And before we start with the video, just quickly kind of give you a quick look at the refugium sideways. And what you see here on the first stage of this hang on the back refugium is a bag of ChemiPure. It's always a good idea to run some carbon to remove some of those oils and stuff like that. Every time you put your hands inside of your aquarium, you never know what you have. You could have washed your hands an hour ago with some soap, and you're actually adding that to the system. So running carbon in any system is really recommended by me, for that reason. And just quickly, we're gonna flip over to the other side, and even though the skimmer here is in the way, I'm gonna show you guys down here at the bottom kind of what the refugium looks like on the other side. And we're gonna move on to the main system. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, but before I start, let me shut off the blue lights so you guys can get a quick view of what the corals look like with just the 10,000 Ks, so that the camera, the blues does not wash out some of the corals, the colors on the corals. So we just shut off the blue lights. Now, lots of questions and answers here. And as I stated previously a little while ago, no one system is the same as another. And therein lies the problem when you try to come at me and ask me a question. Well, do you recommend the Miracle Mud? And in a sense I do, but I've stated this in some of my previous updates. If your tank is going to be mostly dominated by SPS corals and LPS and mushrooms, overall coral system, with just 2 fish in your 30-gallon nano system, then absolutely yes, I recommend you to get the Miracle Mud, because the Miracle Mud has actually shown me some improvements in the overall system. Especially during the night hours. I mean, the extension of the polyps is ridiculous. For example, the candy cane coral here during the night hours, really, I mean, like, the polyps have turned into like an inch long polyps that stick out. trying to feed, because what the Miracle Mud is doing is that it's working as a fertilizer to not only promote the growth of the chaetomorpha, but also promote the growth of phytoplankton. And because this system has a hang on the back refugium, which gravity feeds the water back into the tank, this phytoplankton is not affected by a pump trying to pump it back in. It's actually falling back into the system slowly, and it's feeding the corals during the night hours. So, lots of questions about the system, and we're going to cover all the questions in detail, because once again, no one system is the same as another. And we're going to start out with the lighting of the system. Now, the lighting on my system is, of course, the Aquatic Life T5 fixture. It has 4 bulbs, and each bulb is 39 watts. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I've gotten a lot of questions about the lighting system in particular, and some people tell me, well, how are your corals faring and how they're doing? And of course, my corals are actually doing wonderful. And Miracle Mud itself is not going to make that happen for you. You need proper lighting for your system. But what people fail to understand is that what works for me may not work for you. And once again, everyone's system is different. In this case, the lighting itself is basically 157 watts for a 30-gallon nano system. So I'm getting about 5.2 watts per gallon. And I've stated this in some of my previous videos, that the watts per gallon is not really the way to go. But however, to make this simple, watts per gallon is a good way to go for beginners to understand how much lighting comes into play when you have different types of corals. So considering the fact that this is a 30-gallon system and I have T5 lighting, not metal halides, but I do have 5.2 watts per gallon, it is allowing me to keep SPSs in the system with some really nice vibrant colors. And if I were to say to you, for example, if you were to come to me, for example, and tell me, well, I got a 90-gallon system set up, do you recommend T5s? The problem with that is that, once again, this system is small and it contains enough wattage to give me 5.2 watts per gallon. But if you compare that to the 90-gallon system, which is larger and longer than this 30-gallon nano system, 48 inches, each one of these T5 bulbs is going to give you about 54 watts per bulb. So what happens is that you can't really rely on T5 lighting to keep SPSs. When it comes to a larger system, you're going to need a lot more bulbs. I mean, for example, if you were to compare a 90-gallon system and add this same light fixture, which would give you 54 watts per bulb, if you have 4 bulbs, you're only really going to have about 200 watts on a 90-gallon system. So that means that you're going to get about 2-point-something watts per gallon. So you do see the difference when it comes to me recommending you to get T5s for a much larger system. It is possible to keep SPSs in corals, and the Miracle Mud has helped a lot. But keep in mind, another thing is that, when you have 4 bulbs, each bulb is 39 watts, but what really comes into play when it comes to giving lighting to your system is the lumens and the par. And what happens is that with each bulb that you actually have an actinic in there, you're losing a lot of par. So really, you're not in this 30-gallon system. I don't really have 5.2 watts per gallon. So all of that comes into play. And if you have some more questions about it, hit me up about the lighting. But just be sure to understand, people, that no one system is the same as another. Now, we've covered the lighting to some extent, and we're going to cover water changes. Now, this system has been running for 4 months, approximately, a little over 4 months, and I have not done water changes. But that's because I'm putting the Miracle Mud to the test, and everything seems fine. No nitrates, no nothing, no. But one reason why I'm not getting any nitrates or anything like that is because of the Miracle Mud, and also the Chaetomorpha algae growing in there, as well as the fact that I have a deep sand bed on this system, and you can see it. And for those of you who have watched my deep sand bed videos, I made a video about this system when I first added the deep sand bed, and it looked nothing like this. It's nothing but streaks, worms, critters. This is the life that is going to make your deep sand bed maintain itself clean. So no water changes, no siphoning, but you have to be patient, and you have to set up the deep sand bed properly. So if you have more questions on that, hit me up on that, but that's also helping the system. And another question that I get asked often is, the water flow. Water flow is also very important when it comes to running a reef system. If you have a lack of water flow, you're not going to be as successful as me. And the fact that I don't do water changes on the system, you need a lot of water flow to be able to keep that detritus and that undissolved organic matter and the dissolved organic matter suspended, so that the skimmer can take it out. And considering that I don't do water changes, I rely on supplementation, as you see here. And coming up will be a video discussing each one of these supplementations, calcium, iodine, trace elements, strontium, magnesium, all of that. I have it. Do I use some of them? No. And I will make a video on that. It's coming up shortly, and I will discuss that in detail. Now, last but not least, considering that this is an update for the Miracle Mud, I've gotten the #1 question, which is, do you run your protein skimmer with, of course I do. And as you can see here, the protein skimmer is, and the reason for that is because I've actually discovered, and any person who's running a saltwater system without a protein skimmer will notice that on the surface of the water, no matter how much water movement you have on your system, there will always be a scum that develops on that surface, and that is actually the excess proteins and undissolved organics that settle on the surface of the water. And that's actually what a protein skimmer is going to remove for you. So, I run the skimmer about 6 hours a day during the day. I got it on a timer and stuff like that, and during the night hours I shut it off. And the reason for that is to make sure that the phytoplankton, that gravity falls back into the display from the refugium, feeds my corals, and I've been very successful. But once again, if I was to run Miracle Mud, I'd definitely consider adding a skimmer, and we're not truly done yet. I've got about another 2 months before I fully recommend you to get the Miracle Mud. But once again, people, please understand that in order for your system to be as successful as my system, you must try to replicate what I've done here in its entirety. The protein skimmer, the deep sand bed, the proper wattage per lights per gallon, the amount of corals, smaller amounts of fish, as you see here. So if you add 6 or 7, 8 fish to a 30-gallon nano, you're gonna have a higher bioload. You might actually see some cyanobacteria growth and some hair algae, which I have experienced some hair algae growth, and here on the pump you can see some of it. But the system overall is just doing absolutely beautiful. Do I recommend the Miracle Mud? Absolutely. But in order for it to be successful, once again, as it has been successful for me, you must follow each and every one of my recommendations. And especially with the water changes. If you're not going to do water changes, absolutely make sure that you supplement your system. And if you supplement your system, absolutely make sure that you test your system. Do not supplement something that you cannot test for. So stay tuned for that video coming up on my supplementation. I hope you have enjoyed the video and some of these questions have been answered to you. If you have more questions, feel free to Hit me up on YouTube. Rate my videos, guys. Give it a thumbs up or thumbs down if you find it informative and you like the video. Hope you've enjoyed the video. NewYorkSteelo signing out. Stay tuned for future updates. Peace.